So what now for the Governator? To discuss this further, I'm joined in the studio by Brendon O'Connor, who's an Associate Professor with the United States Study Centre at the University of Sydney. Brendon O'Connor, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a remarkable ride for Arnold Schwarzenegger. How will history remember his role as Governor of California?
Well, it was quite extraordinary how he came to office. In 2003, there was this thing called a recall election, where 1 million Californian voters put their name on a list, on a petition, and said they wanted to recall the governor of the time, Gray Davis, who'd only been elected 8 months earlier before this campaign got to fruition. So this extraordinary idea that you can get rid of a sitting politician where you've got these fixed 4-year terms for governors in the United States was extraordinary enough. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger emerges as the most likely candidate and wins that recall election and goes on to be not just a movie star and a famous bodybuilder, but also Governor of California. I think it's one of those great stories that it's hard not to see as a only in America kind of tale, and I think that's how he'll be remembered.
Because he was swept to power with such high hopes, and he also came full of promises. But looking at the polls now, it's that fewer than 1 in 4 Californians now think that he did a good job. Where did it all go wrong?
Well, the state has a massive debt. I mean, a lot of American states have really serious state debts as well as the national debt. The economy is obviously in a very difficult position across the United States, and California is seen as, symptomatic of that. He promised a lot on energy reform, and some people would say he went against the Republican typecast there, particularly on our environmental policy, but there will be others who say, well, he didn't do enough. He promised a lot on those fronts. So I think from the Republican side, and those Democrats who maybe warm to him as a moderate, he was probably copying it from both sides, criticism from both sides, which led to those dwindling poll numbers.
Well, I suppose it was the economy, wasn't it? Because he was actually doing quite well. He had a few sort of mishaps, but it's the economy, when that all came tumbling down, where things started to go wrong. But how much of that was due to his administration and its policies, and how much was it to do with the broader political and economic landscape in the US?
Well, I think most of it to do with the national landscape. These are big national trends, international trends as well. But the thing he really tried to address was the budget deficit. California had a huge budget deficit, and he tried to address this by many different means. He tried to get some cooperation with the Democrats, who largely controlled the California legislature, and this was entirely unsuccessful. And this, I suppose, is a very bad sign for what might be ahead with Barack Obama. He's going to want to get on top of the deficit this year in America. He's going to negotiate with the opposite party, the Republican Party, in power in the Congress. And maybe Schwarzenegger's story is one of how intractable, in fact, the American political system, even at a state level, at the national level, is to often solving some of the most important problems that America has.
Well, you mentioned Barack Obama because it's very much a similar story, in that the fact that both came to power promising a lot and both have been hit by the economy.
Yes, I mean, I don't naturally see one man a skinnier and thin version and another man, a celebrity of enormous sort of notoriety before he came to office. Obama was someone hardly anyone had barely heard of. But they did come with enormous expectations. There's something different, something fresh in some ways. And they, both have, I suppose, confronted massive problems.
So what's the future now for Arnold Schwarzenegger? Do you think he'll go back to Hollywood, or is he likely to take a punt at Washington?
No, well, you've got to have been born to American parents or born in the United States to run for the presidency. I think he'll be on the speaking tour. I think he wants to commit himself to the environmental agenda, talking about the need to confront global warming is something he said he'll do. Write a couple of books, he claims. So the celebrity won't go away, but the politician, I don't think, will be back.
Okay, Brendon O'Connor from the US Study Centre, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Okay.